Bloomberg Congressional reporter Stephen Dennis joins us now from Washington. Stephen, great to speak with you as always. And I wonder if you could put the significance of that vote in context. Give us some perspective on it. We also had this vote in the House this week on Ukraine and Russia sanctions as well that passed. Again, I think sending a very strong symbolic message to Ukraine that they have U.S. support that the president has been reluctant to offer. How do you see this? Is it the legislative branch here trying to wrest control back from the executive branch? Is it more than symbolic? What do you make of it?
It is basically symbolic. None of these things become law without a 2/3 vote to override a veto. So, and even the House measure is basically a press release, but it's an important press release. You know, I can't remember a time where a president's own party voted to rebuke and end a war that he was prosecuting like this. You know, it certainly did not happen under George Bush, didn't happen under Barack Obama when he was bombing Libya. You know, this is a break from the president, but it really shows how tenuous his control is over Congress. They have very narrow majorities. It only takes a few members to break off, and suddenly they can start passing things he doesn't like. But it is symbolic. They don't have the votes to actually prosecute this. Now, the real question is money. You know, at some point, you need money from Congress for the Defense Department, for the war. And right now, it's kind of unclear if he's going to get anything close to the $400 or $500 billion increase he wants to help prosecute this war and future wars potentially. And that's, you know, that's sort of an open question. There's a lot of nervousness, even among Republicans who didn't vote for these war resolutions in the House and the Senate. There was a vote last week in the Senate to advance one. We'll get a final vote on that probably next week. And we'll see if that passes in the Senate as well. But there are a lot of Republican senators who are up for re-election. People like John Husted in Ohio, who, you know, just in a poll this week was down 8 points to Sherrod Brown in a critical Senate race. And, you know, they're starting to vote with Democrats more and more. And I think they're feeling the pressure that the midterms are coming up. Voters are unhappy with gas prices. They're unhappy with prices in general, and they're uneasy economically, even with, you know, the stock market near record highs.
I also want to ask you, there was this like votorama, which, you know, when you cover Congress is very exciting.
Exhausting. I want to emphasize
exhausting. Yes. And I know you were covering the whole thing. So they did pass, the Senate passed the $70 billion immigration enforcement bill after 18 hours, I think, of amendments, and those kind of ran the gambit from like funding for the ballroom, for a debate over whether or not to prevent this DOJ weaponization fund, anti-weaponization fund. Talk us through. I hear you've got some good deets on how that all went down and some of the back and forth and the drama, even between other Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was all about the Republicans and whether they, you know, there's sort of this loose band of Republicans, anywhere between 4 and 10 on any given vote, who are breaking with the president. And a lot of these senators are not running for re-election. People like Mitch McConnell, Bill Cassidy, and John Cornyn. The president just defeated both of them in primaries. So, you know, some people call them like the Wounded Bear Caucus or whatever.
We had a Republican operative on our show call them the YOLO caucus. Nothing left to lose.
Right, and you know, Bill Cassidy was sort of the main character during this votorama. He has been sort of a tortured soul ever since he voted for RFK's confirmation as HHS secretary. He's spending a lot of time criticizing RFK and his activities on vaccines. But, you know, anybody can just look at the replies to his X account whenever he mentions that, and it's hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of people saying, well, you're the reason why he has that job. And so I think he's a bit of a tortured soul. He looks pretty sad and frustrated. What he was trying to do during the votorama was to find a way to amend this immigration package so that this $1.8 billion fund that the DOJ and Todd Blanche set up potentially to pay off the president's allies, people who were convicted of crimes during the January 6th assault on the Capitol, including potentially people who beat up police officers.
Right.
And this is, it's hard to get something through this keyhole of reconciliation, which is this special process to avoid a filibuster, where you only need 50 votes. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't find language that would only require 50 votes. And so when they finally voted on these various amendments, they needed 60 votes. And while there were a bunch of Republicans who voted with him and with Democrats, most of the Republicans are still just voting with the president. And so they were able to defeat those amendments. And then on final passage, these Republicans had a choice. They could have taken down the bill and forced changes, and they didn't. Ultimately, all the Republicans basically want this underlying bill, which will fund immigration enforcement for the next 3 years and bypass Democrats, because the Democrats, after Alex Preddy's shooting at the beginning of the year, were insisting we need to unmask ICE agents, we need judicial warrants, and the Republicans said no. And so that's what this drama has all been about, was funding that. And this was a moment of leverage for these Republicans. They did get some things. Todd Blanche announced the fund was gone and wouldn't be coming back. But people like Bill Cassidy didn't trust that. In fact, he put an amicus brief earlier in the day. He co-authored an amicus brief to the court saying we got to get rid of this fund and that it's a threat to the republic. So Cassidy is in full YOLO mode, except he didn't quite go all the way and threaten to take down the bill.